If you had £50,000 to invest in property, what would you do in 2026? If you had £50,000 sitting in the bank today and wanted to get into property, what would you actually do with it? Would you buy a buy-to-let? Would you flip a property? Would you use the BRR strategy? Or would you actually be better off keeping it in the bank? In this video, I'm going to break down what I would consider doing with £50,000 in 2026, including some of the costs that people often forget about. And importantly, I'm talking from the perspective of somebody who's actually gone out there and done a project property themselves, not just reading about it. First, don't spend the whole £50,000 at once. The first thing I would do is, just because I've got £50,000, assume that I've got £50,000 for the purchase. Property has a habit of throwing unexpected costs at you, so you've potentially got stamp duty, solicitors, mortgage, bridging fees, surveys, refurbishment costs and holding costs. Then something might go wrong. The boiler needs replacing, the electrics are worse than you expected, the refurbishment runs over budget. So whatever your strategy you choose, always have a contingency fund. Putting every last penny into the deal can leave you in a very difficult position. So option number one is traditional buy-to-let. You find a property, you put down a deposit, you get a buy-to-let mortgage and you rent it out. Sounds simple, but be very careful when you're looking at the numbers. What's the monthly rent going to be? What are the mortgage payments? Then potentially you've got insurance, maintenance, letting fees, compliance costs, periods where the property might be empty. I'd also want to understand the area. What's the rental demand like in the area? What type of tenant are you going to be targeting? And what's likely to happen to the property's value over the longer term? I wouldn't buy a property simply because it had good rental yield. I'd want to understand the entire deal first. So option number two, BRR. The second strategy I'd seriously consider is BRR, Buy, Refurbish, Refinance. This is where things get more interesting. Rather than buying something that's already completely finished, you find a property where you can potentially add value. You buy it, refurbish it, rent it out, and then you refinance it based on its new value. If you bought well and added enough value, you may be able to pull some of your original money back out. That money can potentially be used towards another property, but there's a massive word of warning here. The numbers have to work. You can't simply spend £30,000 refurbishing a house and expecting it to increase in value by £50,000. The end valuation is absolutely critical here. Another great option is flipping. This is something that I've experienced myself. You buy a property that needs work, refurbish it and sell it on for a profit. Sounds straightforward when you say it like that, but there's lots of moving parts. You've got the purchase price, you've got stamp duty, legal costs, finance, refurbishment, holding costs, estate agency fees and the selling costs. And every extra month that you own the property costs you more money. The upside is that if you buy well, control the refurbishment and sell for the right price, you can potentially generate a lump sum rather than waiting years for rental income. But it's definitely not risk-free. One of the biggest things I've learned doing my own property project is that buying well at the beginning is incredibly important. You can make a beautiful kitchen, you can put in a fantastic bathroom, you can completely transform a property, but you can't control the market. That's why I think that the profit is largely made when you buy. You need enough margin in the deal to absorb problems because there's almost certainly some along the way. And when you're looking at a deal on a spreadsheet, it's very easy to convince yourself that all the numbers work. In the real world, things are slightly different. Another option that doesn't get talked about enough is don't spend it all. If I had £50,000, I wouldn't feel under pressure to deploy it all immediately. Maybe £30,000, £40,000 goes towards the right opportunity and the rest remains available as a contingency. Or perhaps I'd wait until I find a genuinely good deal. Having money available doesn't mean you have to buy something. Sometimes the best property deals you do are the ones you walk away from. So what would I personally do with £50,000? I'd be looking for something where I could force appreciation. In other words, something that I can genuinely add value to rather than simply hoping for the market to go up. For me, that makes a BRR or another refurbishment project particularly interesting. I'd want to buy below where I believe the property could be worth eventually, improve it, and then have more than one potential exit. Could I refinance it and keep it? Could I rent it out? Could I sell it if circumstances changed? Having multiple exits gives you more options, but I certainly wouldn't buy a property just because I had £50,000 available. I'd wait for the numbers to see that they made sense. I think one of the biggest mistakes that new property investors make is asking, what kind of property can I buy for my money? I'd turn that around. I'd ask, does the deal make sense and how shall I finance it? Those are two completely different ways of thinking. Don't fall in love with the property, fall in love with the numbers. If the numbers don't work, walk away. There will always be another property. So that's what I'd be considering if I had £50,000 available to invest in property in 2026. Buy-to-let, BRR, flipping can all work, but none of them guarantee automatically good investments. It all comes down to the deal, the finance, the area, your strategy and your exit plan. If you're interested in property investing and want to follow my journey as I actually do it, please subscribe to the Property Playbook. I'm documenting what works, what doesn't work, the mistakes and the numbers along the way. I'm going to tag to this video our most recent property flip in which we made a £37,000 profit. If you'd like to hear more, if you'd like to get involved, please comment below property, and also let me know what you do if you had £50,000 to invest in property in 2026.